idea.
Ah.
This is absolutely marvellous.
When I was about 12 years old, a neighbour used to get my father's newspaper, and then she came on Hard Times. Her husband was a military man and came from a military background. And she asked my father to lend her some money, which in those days was £10. And it was an awful lot of money. It was
When
like
you say those days, how long ago are we talking
60
about? 60
years.
Right, okay.
But I know that it was 2 weeks of my father's wages.
Right.
So he kept them like in lieu of this £10, and then she come over one day and just said, I can't pay you the money back, will you keep the cufflinks? And his answer was, no, they're a family heirloom, you should have them back. But she was just too proud to just have the money and not leave the cufflinks, so that was how it came in the family.
First of all, let's just talk about what we've got. We've got a blue sort of enamel border going around the outside. In the centre surround, you've got mother of pearl. Diamonds form a tiny little letter G and a diamond fleur-de-lis. That's the clue, the fleur-de-lis motif. And then almost to sort of ram the point home here about the potential with Prince of Wales feathers is that you've got little crowns, surmounts above. So, you know, you look at these things, you think, well, just a minute, crowns, Prince of Wales feathers, the monogram letter G, this has to be connected in some way with royalty. Has to be. And that's really why I'm interested to know whether the person, the source, the very source of these, were connected in some way with the household, the royal household, or was there any sort of possible...
The Coldstream Guards.
And that's all we know about him?
Yeah, that's all I know.
Well, I think if it's G, it's George. If it's George, it means with the Prince of Wales plumes here, you're looking at George before he became king. So when he was Prince of Wales. So I think the year we're looking at is probably around about, say, 1905 to 1910. Often, respected people or people who've done a particular service for a member of the royalty would be given a gift. And I think that these were therefore a personal gift from George, when he was still Prince of Wales, to this gentleman. They're extremely well made. You've got one little tiny diamond missing, just there. Apart from that, they're absolutely pristine. And of course, they're mounted up in high carat gold. If I just turn that one over, look at the bright yellow gold. Look at that. Look at the quality there. Super gold frames with individual little sort of hand links between. All right, so there we are. We can date them accurately. We know what they're set with. We look at their condition. We look at how collectible they are, because of course there are people, first of all, that collect cufflinks, and secondly, people that collect whatever it is to do with royal family, memorabilia.
Right.
So they're not easy to value because they're a complete one-off pair. So I wouldn't be surprised if they might be as much as, you know, £3,500 in the retail shop market.
Oh, very nice.
It's actually made in England in 1840. This derives from a design conceived by Prince Albert. He asked for 12 bridesmaids' brooches to be made out of these materials for the Queen to hand out immediately after the wedding ceremony. And it's absolutely loaded with amatory significance. This is a hand on which a lovebird has alighted. It's a lovebird made of turquoise. And in the language of the lapidary, the turquoise stands for true love. It's an echo of the colour of the forget-me-not flower, and it means forget-me-not too. But also you can see lurking here is a tiny little ruby eye for the lovebird. And again, in the language of the lapidary, this stands for passion. So we've got passionate true love. And also we want that forever, dream on, as they say. But it's true in that the fingernails of the hand are actually diamonds, and diamonds are forever. So this is forever, passionate, true love in a tiny jewel like this. What does it mean to you?
Well, I just love it.
You wear it?
And I do wear it, yes.
Had you got a clue about its meaning, its hidden meaning?
Well, I No, I hadn't really. No.
No, well, in a way, that's good fun, because I think the point about jewellery is that it does act on us kind of subliminally. There's something very deep-seated in us, this understanding, and we don't have to think about it very carefully and hard. But I must say it's hugely animated. I mean, it really is very sculptural, and that's quite rare in jewellery. Usually it's very sort of two-dimensional, and it is the liveliest composition I've seen of this type of jewellery. Intrinsic value is nothing, really, absolutely nothing. I mean, really no more than sort of 80 to 100 pounds in the value of the stones, but in the value of the composition, 800 pounds.
Goodness, I'll still wear it.
Good, that's what it's for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, what's a young man like you doing with acres of royal jewellery like this?
Well, it all started 10 years ago with the cufflinks and the associated letter. They were on a local news programme that's coming up for auction, and I rang the auction house the next day and left the commission bid, and
you got them?
I got them.
Wow. And we want to hear a bit about this letter too. Tell us about that one.
It says, "I send you these links as a souvenir of my coronation when you attended me as one of my pages. George R.I., 1937.
Not bad, is it?
No.
Well,
that one goes with the cufflinks, and those cufflinks were presented to Robert Montague Elliot, and he was the second son of the 8th Earl of St Germans, and he was a page of honour from 1937 to 1940.
So absolute bang-on provenance in the king's writing. He's not only a king, he's an emperor too, isn't he?
That's right, yeah.
And I think that's a marvellous thought, isn't it, that his hand actually moved across this paper and he took the care to give somebody something to a moment of enormous importance to them both, really. Now, which was the next one?
The next one was the small brooch at the front.
Made for King George V, isn't it, to give away?
That's
and
right.
That's the point. And by Collingwoods, who are very famous jewellers, and they're specialised in making these royal presentation brooches, what they are. What do you feel when you acquire something like that?
It's quite exciting in a way, because you've got the history behind it. That one was presented to a nurse that looked after Princess Victoria, the King's sister, sometime in the early 30s, I believe.
And this one here for George V too, isn't it? Tell me about core underneath. You think that...
Well, apparently, according to the family, it was added on afterwards. So whether this is, I don't know, a lady-in-waiting's badge or something like that, because it actually comes with all its bits and pieces. It's fitted as a brooch at the moment, but it's got its chain and its pendant fitting.
Absolutely, and that's typical of the very finest jewellery, actually. It's always very versatile, and it comes with a little Meccano set of almost a sort of a car maintenance set underneath, really. And that's a sign of something really very distinguished. And actually, I mean, we can tell it's pretty distinguished because it's made by Hennells, who are also a very old established London firm who are supplying the court. And in a way, this is all about duty. It's about royal duty, isn't it? And and part of the duty is to leave little footprints in the sand of where, to reward people, to give them things that they're going to treasure. Now, these are completely priceless things, but I suppose everybody wants to know which is the least expensive thing and possibly which is the most expensive thing to you.
The least expensive was the stick pin. That cost something near £300. The most expensive was the cufflinks and the letter. They cost a little over £2,000.
And the value, I think, is a lot to do with the letter, isn't it? I mean, frankly, without that, it would be a great deal less in your collecting experience, wouldn't it?
That's right, yes.
I reckon this is a collection that's worth, well, £10,000, £15,000 as a group, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Where are you going to go from this? Are you going to get a Fabergé one?
I'd like to, but I think they're a little expensive for me just at the moment.
Well, you've given your heart and soul to all of this, and I think you're going to give it for the rest of your life, and I think it's marvellous. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, the sight of a box like this often heralds the fact that it contains something by Fabergé. And when we open it up like this, we can see that it's certainly Russian, but not necessarily by Fabergé. It's by another maker. You tell me about it.
Well, I'm surprised you said Russian, actually, because I inherited it from my mother-in-law, and her father, I understand, bought it when the Romanian royal family had to sell all their jewels and they were no longer becoming royal and they were sent out to Romania. So I suppose I sort of thought that writing on the box was Romanian.
Well, it's certainly in Cyrillic, and actually I think what it does say is that it's retailed by a jeweller called Malkanar, and then underneath of Odessa.
Yes.
And I think we can be absolutely sure that this is contemporary with Fabergé, not only from the style of the box, but also from the style of the ring. It's made of platinum and gold and little calibre rubies, very bright little rubies, and centred with quite a substantial, brilliant cut diamond. And of course, everybody wants to know, do you enjoy wearing it?
Well, I do wear it on rather special occasions, I must admit.
Brilliant.
But I do enjoy wearing it. It's a very pretty ring.
And you can put it on your finger now and see what it looks like.
Right.
Does it go on there?
Yes.
What's it feel like to own a ring like that? What do you really feel about it?
Well, I always feel it's had a bit of a special history about it, and that's the part that's always interested me, you know, apart from whether it's a valuable ring or not. It's the history, and I've been wanting to verify, if I could, exactly where it came from and whether the story that I'd been told was true.
Absolutely. So I think one can say that it possibly is true, because the Romanian royal family might well have been given things from Russia. I mean, Russia was a great centre for the manufacture of jewellery and goldsmiths' work, because it's an immensely rich country, actually, and was probably worn by somebody of quite high status, I imagine, either in Russia or possibly in Romania. I think it's very harmonious. I think it's a perfect design, perfect material, perfect history, and obviously very contemporary and wearable, because there you have it.
It is.
So that's all going to add up like mad, isn't it? Have you ever thought what it might add up to?
Well, I have had insurance valuation probably about 12 years ago now, so I don't know whether
Well,
it's up to
I'm
date.
going to sort of make a stab at it, and I can't see much hope of buying a Russian ring like that really for much less than about £7,000, £8,000, £9,000.
Well, that's very reassuring, I think, so thank you very much, apart from anything else.
Good. Well, it's been a great pleasure to see it, and I think you wear it very well.
They're nice quality reproductions, but because they're copies, they're nothing like as valuable as an original. These should be insured for probably £1,600–1,700 each.
That's quite impressive.
But this item is much more interesting.
Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about its history?
Well, it came to me from my great-grandfather, who was General the Honourable Sir Percy Fielding, and it was given to his brother, his elder brother, who was later the 8th Earl, by Queen Adelaide. I presume as probably a 21st present, or perhaps as a souvenir of services in equerry.
Do you know whether it's actually ever been used at all? Because I notice it's a bit bashed and bruised around.
I'm rather ashamed of the state of it. I think it did, yes, because my great-grandfather fought throughout the Crimean War. And
Well,
was wounded at
that's
Inkerman.
quite possibly a very good clue to why it's in its present rather bruised state, because this donut-looking thing actually should screw together, but for some reason or other the screw, which is meant to come through into the middle, doesn't reach.
No.
But if we take it apart, it is actually, as I'm sure you know, a travelling chamber stick. Now these are quite rare things, but the nice thing about this is that nearly all of them are 19th century. This one is 18th century. And if we turn it over, we've got some very worn hallmarks just here. And we've got a date letter Q here.
Right.
And that means they were actually made in 1771. Now they should have other marks on the... That's the only mark surviving that can tell you who the maker is. And the maker's mark is EC for Ebenezer Coker. Coker was a well-known candlestick maker from the 1760s and early 1770s. And these were absolutely typical of the sort of item that was taken around Europe on the Grand Tour. Now, I notice also, judging by what you were saying, it says here, given to the Honourable William Fielding by Queen Adelaide, Christmas 1846. And with that royal inscription, that sets them up on a slightly
More interesting,
different level.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a figure put on them by any professional
No,
valuer?
never. I've just regarded them as curiosities, really, certainly not as anything of the moment.
Well, I think your insurers ought to know about them, because I would put a figure of £5,000 on these alone.
Oh dear.
A stunning cup and saucer, and also letters giving details of when they were presented. Of course, the letters shows it was given to a Reverend Pocock. That was in September 1877, and it was given by no less than the Empress Augusta of Germany.
Well, it's been in the family for a long time, but my mother died earlier in the year. I'm her executor, and in her will, she is passing this on to my cousin, her niece.
The letter says here, Her Majesty the Empress Queen is sorry to hear of your departure from Koblenz. I am directed to forward to you the following parcel containing a piece of china made in the Royal Manufactory in Berlin. So the Empress Queen, that of course is Empress Augusta. She is the wife of Kaiser Wilhelm, and so she is one of the most important people in Europe at that time. Well, the Royal Manufactory in Berlin that's best known for its initials, KPM, and one speciality of the factory was topographical decoration. That's
right.
Porcelain painted with landscapes and views. Usually they're views in Berlin, and they were given as royal and diplomatic gifts. Do you know what the view shows?
No, I've no idea.
I recognise this view as the Electoral Palace in Koblenz. And this was the building where the Empress, when she was Princess Augusta, and Prince Wilhelm lived in the palace here in the early 1850s. Have you got a good magnifying glass at home?
I haven't used one, no.
I've got my little lens here, and looking through it, I can see every single window, every little chimney on the roof. It's all there in incredible detail. When this was given, this wasn't a new cup and saucer. It would have been something that the Empress had in her china cabinet or on her dressing table, and she's chosen this personal relic to give to her friend, the Reverend Pocock, as a gift. So a costly cup and saucer when it was given, and a true heirloom indeed, because now a piece like that with the royal provenance, I guess it's going to be £4,000, even £5,000.
Really? Ah. We talked about this in the car on the way here and had sort of guessed at perhaps 400. What do we know?
It was a cabinet piece and special indeed.
Well, my mother asked me to pass it on to her niece, and I guess I'll have to do that. After that valuation, one's tempted to do otherwise.
Being so close to Worcester today, I hoped I'd see some nice Worcester porcelain, but you've brought along a really very special piece, and the likes of which I've never seen before. Oh, tell me about it.
Well, it's made by the Grangers, in George Granger's time, and it's come down through the family. In fact, I've just established that George Granger was my great-great-grandfather.
Grangers were one of the great porcelain makers in Worcester.
Yes.
Here's the name on the back, G. Granger & Co. Worcester. And they were the other Worcester factory, the smaller factory, the other side of the city. And Paul Granger is generally thought of as being nothing on the same league as the great Royal Worcester factory. But here is a piece that shows just how good Granger could be.
We think it was made about 1840, and it's been handed down generation and loved. And the story that my mother told me was that it's an extra from a set that was made for Queen Victoria to give the Tsar. But we haven't been able to corroborate this. In fact, we approached the Worcester Museum, who had no record of it.
Yes. And the Hermitage in Russia.
Oh, right, so you've been researching all around.
And the Royal Collection.
And the Royal Collection also had no record.
Looking at the piece, it has, of course, proud in the middle. There, the arms of Queen Victoria. And in the panels around the border, you've got the different royal palaces. You've got Windsor Castle there.
Yes.
That must be Buckingham Palace. And
I think so.
There were the little figures, charming figures in the foreground there. And there we've got the pavilion at Brighton.
Are they hand-painted?
Beautifully hand-painted.
We've looked at it through magnifying glass, and it's amazing.
The gilding there, this amazing rays and barbs, it's just unlike any other English royal services. All the factories made pieces for Queen Victoria and for William IV beforehand, but this is so much more splendid, more eccentric than that. We know that there were pieces made for the Queen Victoria and services which went back and forward between England and Russia, but this never went. This stayed in the family. So is this some sort of sample? I mean, with this quality, why didn't they get the order, I wonder? But what I've never seen before on Granger or any other factories is these model flowers stuck on the plates in addition. The little roses are each made by hand and stuck on.
Yes. You couldn't eat off of it, could you?
Not very easily. Can't you imagine even in a royal palace trying to carve your feet off there? Maybe it was just a bit too silly. They've gone over the top, and the order wasn't placed. How do you value a royal plate in a family like that? Have you thought about it?
No.
Well, we thought, but we don't know.
It's not even insured.
I mean, maybe £4,000.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent.
We seem to have almost a full house here of all the royal residences. Curiously, locally, we don't have Sandringham, but how did you come by this collection?
It was handed down to my step-grandfather by the chief librarian of Windsor Castle.
And was he Mr. Woodward?
Yeah, that's correct. Mr.
Right.
Woodward was appointed there in 1860, and the scrapbook and the invitations were handed down by him, a member of his family, through down to my family.
Right. He seems to have been invited to all the great events too, so he obviously had quite a nice life. It's a wonderful picture of life in Victorian England, isn't it, with these wonderfully grand invitations. But although those are very interesting, really the main thing is this fantastic album here. And perhaps it's worth starting right almost at the beginning. This is full of absolutely riveting things, isn't it?
It is.
And while he was at Windsor Castle, he obviously was in the habit of receiving letters and writing letters on behalf of the Queen and the other members of the royal family. And rather than chucking them away like we do today, he obviously kept them, and he kept them nicely mounted in this album. And I think one of the nicest things right at the beginning are these two scribbled little notes from Queen Victoria to him in pencil, just asking him to make sure that he could, it says, "Dear Mr. Woodward, send over those drawings," and then it's rather difficult to read which drawings, which is rather maddening, isn't it? But you can imagine her rather imperiously saying, "Send over those drawings, Woodward." And here it is, November the 17th, 1864. On this occasion, she's asking for a volume of somebody's English history. You know, it conjures up a wonderful picture of Queen Victoria sitting in her ivory tower, sending for Woodward and his and all his books. He was obviously clearly a friend of the royal family, because here you've got this absolutely delightful sketch where it says here, Princess Louise and Miss Bower. In the distance, B.B. Woodward and Mr. Roland. So this is actually Woodward in one of the drawings.
Yes, it is.
Their album is just full of the most extraordinary things, and you know, it would take weeks to go through it all. You've got here a cheque signed by the Duke of Wellington. Here you've got a letter from John Ruskin, you know, the great man of letters and the arbiter of taste in Victorian times about art. Sadly, the content of the letters isn't wildly exciting. It would be nice if he was making groundbreaking comments, but nevertheless, it's still very interesting.
I suppose there's a limit to what you can say to a librarian, though, isn't there?
Well, I suspect that's right, and I think it's a very good comment. I think, you know, the relationship with these people was a professional relationship rather than an intimate relationship. In other words, he wasn't writing as a friend to dear Woodward. He was writing, you're quite right, probably more instructive or demanding, rather like Queen Victoria's.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is extremely rare. Florence Nightingale. You know, you just don't get Nightingale autographs like this. And so it goes on. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely wonderful. And once again, there's another of the great Victorian figures, Darwin. Fantastic. And, you know, as I say, it would take weeks to go through them all, but it's a real treat to see them. It's very difficult until one has a chance to go right through the whole lot to put a value on it. And at the end of the day, I suspect, you know, because they're clipped out and pasted in, you know, the value of some of the letters has diminished a bit. But I can imagine, with a bit of research, it would be worth somewhere between £5,000 and £10,000 for the collection. The drawing alone is worth probably 700 or 800.
Very good.
So, you know, jolly nice thing to have.
This jewellery came from my late husband's family, and as far as I believe, my father-in-law's grandmother was nanny to Queen Alexandra and Edward VII's children, or Lord and Lady Knollys' children, and Lady Charlotte Knollys was lady-in-wait to Queen Alexandra.
Well, fantastic, and there's plenty of evidence to back that up, isn't there?
Yes.
I mean, these magnificent little presentation brooches are a sort of little march through her career. This is the cipher of Queen Alexandra, the double A, isn't it?
Yes, that's
and
right.
Under the royal crown. And so perhaps this was a Christmas present.
Yes.
Maybe that's a birthday present and yet another one. And this dear Nanny would wear them with enormous pride, I'm absolutely sure. These two, actually, made her swell with pride even more. Have you thought at all about the date? 1902, why that would be so special? It's the coronation of Edward VII.
That's right.
Certainly this dear Mrs. Martin, the Nanny would have shared in the great drama that surrounded the coronation of Edward VII. And so I believe that people who went to that coronation would have been given a medal such as this. More intimate friends would have been given a brooch where the date 1902 is laid out very precisely in the lid. But I think that if we're going to get a measure of exactly how intimate this relationship is, and it very clearly is, we need to look at these stunning telegrams. It says, handed in at Sandringham, Mrs. Martin at Sir John Knolles's stable yard, St James's Palace. And it says, and I think this is full of drama, I really do, poor dear Baba and tiny mama miss Nana very much. Hope she is well and not too sad. Signed, Princess of Wales.
Would that be the sadness of Queen Alexandra's death? Is the date of that?
Yes, I suppose
25.
that's absolutely right, isn't it? You know, of course, you're living with them, you're going to get that absolutely
Yes.
marvellous. And that seems to be an absolute bombshell to receive, doesn't it?
That's right, yes.
And a bombshell to have taken down by the secretary at the postal office. I'm sure it was a very, very exciting moment to receive that. Similar excitement here. Fantastically exciting invitation. It says, at Sandringham, the Queen wishes to let Nana know that she's expected here as usual for Christmas.
It's lovely.
Fantastic, isn't it? I mean, straight from the heart. My
Quite
goodness.
the closeness there. It's
Absolutely.
very, very nice. Yes.
Well, these were enormously important people that sent these telegrams, that gave these jewels, really. What do you really feel about them when you look at them?
I just love them. I feel as though I'd like to go back in time and be a part of it. But I suppose in a way I am a part of it because they've ended up in my care.
So, value, goodness, well, this is almost a vulgarity to value them, isn't it? I mean, I don't know where to start. A little medallion from the coronation of Edward VII, £500 or £600 perhaps for that.
Gosh.
And a brooch commemorating the same occasion, maybe £1,250.
Gosh.
And then move on to this one, slightly smaller, but much more complex, and it's what we call a reverse intaglio. It's made of rock crystal that's been engraved from behind with the cipher of the Queen, and then painted from behind, so it seems to be in 3D, backed with mother of pearl, and then sealed in gold, and original box. £1,500, maybe £1,750, £50, I don't know. A watch, a gorgeous watch, actually plain, but sophisticated, well, maybe £2,000. And then back here with more colour in translucent green enamel and white enamel and pearls. And they're not only masterpieces of ciphers and monograms, but they're also thought out in colour and in texture and in 3 dimensions. And so they are little sculptures in boxes. So really 2,000 again for that one, if you could ever find them. So heavens about, I don't know,
That's
what's
wonderful.
it all add up to?
I nearly didn't bother to come today. Nearly stayed at home and decorated.
Well, I'm massively relieved that you put the paintbrush
I'm
down,
really
because
pleased, yes. Thank you very
completely
much
made my
indeed,
day.
yes.
And this is absolutely marvellous. And I know you're going to take great care of them because
Oh,
you care
yes.
about them, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do, very, very much, yes.
We brought along a really good-looking piece of Victorian silver with silver gilt panels on it. And it's got some interesting initials engraved on it, but appear to be the V for Queen Victoria, A for Prince Albert, and LP, which I think might be Louis Philippe, King of the French.
Yep.
And it has a date, October the 14th, 1844.
In 1844, there was a visit from the King of the French to the UK, a state visit. Upon his return, a storm brewed up, which is depicted
in this print here. Yeah.
And he couldn't get onto the boat. So they put a call out, however they did it in those days, to the guy who lived in the house we bought, Thomas Grant, and he was told to boot out his guests because the Queen was coming for tea. So she came with her party, including Louis Philippe and Albert, and that was a gift that the Queen gave to Thomas as a thank you.
Good heavens, extraordinary story. And you live in Thomas Grant's house?
We bought Thomas Grant's house as a wreck about 20 years ago.
Right. Now, he was a very, very good, if not famous, inventor. Is this the same chap?
It is. The first thing he invented was a mechanised way of making ship's biscuits, which made the making of ship's biscuits 12 times more efficient than it had been, which was pretty important in those days. Then he did a number of other things, including inventing a way to desalinate water, which again was pretty useful.
That was very important.
And then he got his knighthood for victualling the Navy at the Battle of Crimea.
So how did you end up with this?
My wife and I first bought the house. We went to a local gallery and got talking to the owner, and we told him we lived in Thomas Grant's house. He said, "Oh, I bought the cup a number of years ago. I'd love to have been able to sell it to you because it belongs in the house." He sold it to somebody else in the interim, or before I met him. But over the years, we badgered the guy who bought it. And one day he said, "It deserves to be back with you." So he sold it to us for the same price he paid for it, $3,300.
Right, okay. Well, let's take off the lid. It's got a set of marks in here for Robert Garrard. And Garrards were the royal jewellers at the time. It has a date letter here for 1844, which ties in, and it's all in the very high Victorian style. But overall, a very handsome piece. The fact it's royal, the fact that Grant is a reasonably well-known character, if this came up for auction now, I can easily see it making £6,000, £7,000, £8,000. So I think you've done...
Brilliant. Well, my wife did well. Yeah, fantastic.
You've reunited it where it should belong.